Hey, what's up guys, I'm Josh. So I reviewed and recommended years ago the DT1990 Pro. I just repurchased this to analyze if it's still worth it in 2024. Spoiler alert, the short answer is no. It's not really worth it, except for a few small circumstances. Now that being said, I want to briefly break down why it's not worth it, what happened to it, and why I no longer really recommend it. So the 30-second version of what actually happened to it is just, it aged out. The market just got really, really good, both below and above it for price, and things got a lot better than they used to be when this came out. When this came out, there were very few good options at this price point, but today that's changed. And while I stand by this being a decent headphone for that time period, today, it's no longer the same. So we really have to look at the sound signature for this. There are a couple real strong benefits that this sound signature does have. If you look at a frequency response graph, the bass actually seems really linear, but when you actually have the listening impressions of this, it actually hits really strong in a way that even a lot of planar magnetics don't quite hit for this price category. They don't really hit as hard as this does, even though it doesn't look super impressive on an FR graph. Another benefit is that this is still one of the best built headphones at this price and comes with a really good accessories package that not a lot of headphones have. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but it does come with an extra set of different pads that are very high quality in terms of build and materials. It comes with 2 cables and a very nice hard carrying case. And that mixed with the actual build quality of this unit is something that is becoming increasingly rare at this price point. There are headphones that are $400, $500, $600, $700, $800 that are coming in just cardboard boxes nowadays. It's crazy. Now, the third benefit of this is a double-edged sword, which will lead us into the dislikes, which is that it is an extremely detailed headphone even for the price. And I think the detail capability of this is on par with the best of them at this price even till today. But the other side of that blade, that double-edged sword part, is that this headphone, by today's standards, is way, way too bright. Now, it was always a bright headphone, but the other categories like the bass response, the sound staging, and the detail made it worth it back in the day. But nowadays, you can get all those things like detail, sound staging, and bass response while not having to sacrifice as much on listening to an overly bright headphone. So if you look at that frequency response graph, these are simply too bright to be good by today's standards. Now, like everything, there is a bit of nuance here. Sometimes those details can pop through in a way that a less forward headphone in the treble response can't do. That is a common thing that happens with a lot of headphones. Oftentimes, the most detailed headphones are often a little bit bright. HiFiMan HE1000 rings a bell. One of the most detailed headphones I've ever heard, but tiny bit bright. So this brings me into 2 categories where I would still recommend this headphone. And then the rest, I'm just gonna give recommendations for different headphones that are probably a little bit better. 2 categories. I still freaking love this thing for gaming. It is a very expensive headphone to buy for gaming exclusively, but I'm considering keeping this thing and not selling it to someone else just for the gaming potential of this because it's amazing. Yes, it's a little bit sharp, but that imaging and sound staging precision and those bass hits, like it just all comes together to make a great headphone. The second is that depending on what type of sound you're used to for a studio, this could potentially still make a really good studio headphone. There are other headphones like the HD490 that are a bit more linear and maybe more appropriate to some studios, but I think other studios actually prefer the slightly brighter sound of kind of a typical Beyerdynamic sound because that's what they're used to working with. So if you're used to working with that style of a slightly brighter kind of studio monitor, this is in line with that sound. I'm not saying that's correct or that's what you should be doing, but I am saying that there are a lot of people who would still prefer to use this for professional use. But outside of that, especially for audiophiles, I think this is a no-go. So this brings me into the other headphones that are better and why. When it comes to headphones that are cheaper than this, I think headphones like the HC660S2 and the HD490 are better, perhaps more linear options. They're more controlled. They have less extreme benefits of sound staging, for example, but are more controlled through most of their frequency response and more balanced through most of their frequency response. Another headphone that is perhaps on a similar amount of detail, but slightly less for the treble response, but still focuses on a wide sound stage, hyper detailed sound signature, is the HiFiMan Edition XS. It's a really great headphone for the price and comes in a little bit cheaper than this. If you want a radically different sound signature and you prefer to avoid all really bright headphones and you want something perhaps a little bit darker and more meaty sounding, I really have been enjoying the AR5000 from Aeon. This is their first headphone, but it's an absolute banger, lightweight, comfortable, great kind of thicker sound. I think it's a really solid headphone for just $300. If you're willing to spend more, I think a headphone that has a somewhat similar sound signature to this with good bass, okay mid-range, and kind of a little bit better controlled treble response than this, but still detailed sounding, is the Meze 109 Pro. I loved this headphone when it came out. I think it's more comfortable than this. It's also very well built. It is a little bit more expensive, but I think that people who kind of spend that extra money will be rewarded for spending that extra money. It really doesn't feel like a compromise over this design in just about any way. I like that headphone a lot. The Edition XS and the 109 Pro are also two headphones that are a little bit brighter on the top end, but you get the benefits of detail retrieval from those. And the benefits of those over the 1990 is that they are, yes, a little bit brighter than neutral, but they are more controlled than the 1990. So the 1990 will really kick up that vocal sibilance pretty fast, and those top end instruments can come across quite sharp sometimes. Those reduce that and don't really enter that region nearly as quickly as the 1990 will. Okay, so as far as a 2024 headphone, is it worth picking up new? I'd say probably not for music listeners. If you prefer a wired connection, I still think for games this is awesome if you have like basically an unlimited budget. But even for that, I might recommend a Maxwell personally. Like I'd probably pick up a Maxwell if I was just using it for gaming. But yeah, short of that, in 2024, I don't really think it's worth it that much. It was a good headphone back in the day, but that time has kind of came and went. I'd love to see a DT1990 Pro version 2 that was a bit more, up with the times. All right. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.